Hello comic book fans, here's Earl Grey. In Panellogy 199 I talked about 5 comics that were important at certain points in my life. That was a tough choice for sure. A close contender was this book here, Orchidea by the Swiss comic creator Cosey. Because in the 90s I would have called this my most favorite comic. In Orchidea, 3 siblings want to surprise their father for his 80th birthday. So they have to meet each other and travel through half the United States. During the trip we learn about their current life, the compromises they have to take, all the small and big lies that they come up with to paint their mistakes in a brighter light. For an European comic there is not so much dialogue, but since Cosey is very poignant and succinct, he's able to reveal all these everyday tragedies and deceiving in some half-sentences or one facial expression. And like it is in that road movie kind of story, not only the scenery changes during the journey, but changes happen to the cast of characters as well. This includes the father who left the old age asylum. Orchidea is a pretty quick read, a 60 pages road movie in comic book form. In hindsight, it is a remarkable comic, but not such a big deal actually, because there are many similar stories out there. It was a big deal for me at that time, nevertheless, because it was maybe the first time I was confronted with stuff like that in the comic medium. With this sense of freedom, open narration, realism and humanity. And atmosphere. I remember that I was totally amazed, especially by Cosey's typical use of mute panel sequences to create atmosphere, a distinct Cosey-ish melancholia. Look at the cover image of Orchidea, for instance. His art is very cautious, careful and silent. Nothing that aims for your attention, at least on the first sight. Like his color palette, there are a lot of middle tones. The story here is A Voyage to Italy. It was published back in the day as 2 softcover European albums, but was reprinted in different formats since. It's maybe together with In Search of Peter Pan, the most famous comic from Cosey. Yeah, graphic novel, whatever. Like Orchidea, it has road movie elements, but much more than that. It's actually pretty complex without being difficult. In the center there's a love triangle, like in Julie and Jim, the François Truffaut movie, one of the most beautiful and wonderful movies ever made. If you're into that kind of stuff, you probably will love Cosey's comics like I did, and to a great degree still do today. These comics hit me right at the right time. I was desperately looking for my way in life. High expectations and disappointments were colliding on an almost daily basis, like it is in that phase of your life when you're looking for a direction, a purpose in your life, or just a smile from that particular girl. Anyhow, it was the time when I discovered the movies from François Truffaut and the other Nouvelle Vague movies. And somehow Cosey's comics fitted in right there, even though they were less intricate than Truffaut and far less intellectual than Luc Godard. But the tone, and again the atmosphere and longing, I found that in all of them, almost a comment on my life situation back then. And even though I'm absolutely not a mountain guy, I only can climb that high until vertigo kicks in. Even though I'm not a mountain guy, all aforementioned is true for the second of Cosey's big breakthrough stories, and that's In Search of Peter Pan. Or À la recherche de Peter Pan, which is the French original title. It's a 2-part love story as well, about a writer who came back to the Swiss mountains to meet his own past and find the love of his life. There's the imminent danger of an avalanche, The village is evacuated, but our two main protagonists won't leave. That, in quotes, unreasonable behavior, to take unnecessary risks just to stay at one place even if you can die, just because you want to stay at that particular moment, at that particular place, that part of the story occupied me quite a bit. The end of In Search of Peter Pan was a bit foreseeable and not so great though. This is some kind of fanzine about the work of Cosey. What's interesting about that is that we can learn about some of his influences. For an example, he started doing comics in the typical Franco-Belgian funny style. This looks pretty good and hard to distinguish from other artists who work in the same style. Which is my biggest complaint about these kind of comics, that the art is very serviceable, of course, but very formulaic at the same time, and that there is only little room for the individuality of the artist. Anyhow, the most important influence was his friend Darab, maybe, the creator of Buddy Longway. Cosey could work as a kind of assistant/apprentice in Darab's studio, and they became lifelong friends. Even though you can distinguish clearly Cosey's art from Darab's, there has been always a striking similarity in, yes, tone and atmosphere in both of their comics. So here I have another stack of Cosey's comics, but since I actually feel that I have already said almost everything that I wanted to say about Cosey, I'll go through this a lot quicker. Jonathan, or Jonathan, is Cosey's series around a Swiss guy named, yes, Jonathan, who travels to Tibet and experiences a lot of adventures. Jonathan is obviously modeled after Cosey himself, who traveled to Tibet as well. The Far East was, of course, very popular at the time for folks who want to escape our society for a while, to find, so to speak, themselves in the most foreign countries. Two things make the series Jonathan pretty interesting. Most and foremost, it differs from most of the typical European adventure comics in showcasing a sensitive and to a degree disturbed hero who changes a lot in the run of the story. And secondly, you can experience the development of Cosey's craft as a comic artist. From mere serviceable, sometimes even a bit clumsy art in the beginning, to the self-reliant storyteller later on. On the bottom line, even if I wouldn't count Cosey as one of my absolute favorite comic creators anymore, he's nevertheless pretty close. And whenever I see one of his comics in a nice edition, it's always a no-brainer to pick it up. It's like visiting an old friend. I know what I can expect with these one-off stories. I can dive into the special melancholia, escape my day-to-day reality, but come back with some wisdom that enriches me, if you know what I mean. It's just what good stories, good art can do. Even if it is a Mickey Mouse story, like in A Mysterious Melody, in which Cosey paid homage to the world of Walt Disney. He didn't fool around with the Disney characters, but stayed very close to the originals. Some reviews criticized that, but I think that he didn't want to do it otherwise. It is just his humble, modest way of paying a tribute to the world of Walt Disney. That's at least how I see it, and I dig it quite a bit. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.